18 days since the Last Gambit landed on PC. It's supposed to be coming to console before the end of January, and it's kind of left the question of 18 days later, is Nidus actually any good? Now he's kind of embedded in the game. If there was going to be OP changes or anything like that, it should have happened by now. Obviously, there is the fix that comes sometime this week where you can take an infested Warframe, that's one that has this cyst with the hair sticking out of it. Once it has the hair sticking out of it, that's a fully grown cyst. Any frame that has a fully grown one will also be able to open this door, because they're kind of implementing a cure to the thing in there, where you can go in and... I'm torn as to whether I believe the fact that during the dev stream they said it's a permanent cure. That would mean it doesn't come back, or whether it just gets rid of the cyst. Maybe the cyst is going to become a new resource in there, that once, you've got to incubate a resource within your Warframe, and then eventually you take it out and then you get so much every time you do it. That would be quite interesting, but we have to wait for that update to see. But is he any good? I was in two minds about showing builds or anything else, because the reason I say this is I left the V polarity in here, which I can't actually take out unless I take something else out, because that has actually left me putting 5 forma in other places with the option to go back to it, because I do run melee quite a lot recently and I found it to be more useful. Corrosive projection is only in here because I was doing the sortie earlier. So even though the easiest thing to do there would be to format out the polarity to swap in whatever I wanted, it backfired on me because I was supposed to format the Exilus slot with a V polarity and I put the wrong one on. At first I was kind of annoyed because it meant I'm going to have to put a 6th forma in this, but that chance to resist knockdown has come in fairly useful recently, so I'm kind of glad that's in there, plus the power strength when mixed with the transient fortitude, and then you throw intensify in there, which I have to put that back in there for, means that the healing ability, the 4th ability, is just insane, and I still have fairly decent range. One of the first things I came across I thought was going to be a problem were the hijack missions. This Corpus one is a great example. I jumped in and I ran around as you normally wouldn't, because normally you're trying to stay close to it because it uses your shields to hijack the vehicle. How do you do that with Nidus, who has no shields? So run around, do all that, eventually did figure out that it actually doesn't need to use the shield on Nidus, which I am really glad somebody figured out, because I didn't realise this when I went into the mission. So even though he has no shields, and this is something I should have realised using a Norris, I just didn't use them for hijack missions, you can actually still use him for hijack missions, but it uses the health. That's where the primed Vigour would come in really useful, even Vigour by itself. But it's fitting that in here and still trying to keep some of the power strength and the duration, because the duration is kind of important for the 3rd and 4th of his abilities. The biggest problem I actually came across was when you use Virulence on the beginning of really lower level missions, it doesn't really help to build up the stacks, because all that happens is you take out the enemies too quickly. Obviously, when you've got more stacks there, it will do that because the damage is increased, but trying to build up the stacks on the lower level stuff to get to that point can be a bit of a pain. Even building up the first 3 levels, when you're doing lower level stuff, you're using more power than you're actually getting, so it is a bit of a problem on the lower level stuff, but this guy seems to be aimed more towards the mid-level stuff anyway. Easy counter for this is use Lava, the 2nd ability, to pull them all into one place, and then use Virulence, the 1st ability, and take them all out at once. That will build a bit of a stack a little bit quicker, but then you've got to wait for other enemies, and it just uses a lot of power. The fact that Parasitic Link is affected by range, Lava's questionable. I've heard it is, I've seen that people saying it is, but to be fair, the further away the people are, the more chance you have if they get glitched behind a rock. The range seems to mainly be for Parasitic Link and Virulence. Virulence is the first ability, Parasitic Link is his third. I use it mainly for the first ability, but Ravenous, which is his fourth ability, is not affected by it at all. That is when I'll run the Transient Fortitude, Intensify and Power Drift mod setup, hence for higher level stuff, because obviously when you're doing higher level stuff you'll be taking more damage, and then you can have somewhere that people can go to heal quicker, which, to be fair, is just better on high level stuff. So building this guy was a bit of a pain. I'm still playing with his builds, and it's been, at the moment, 18 days since he actually arrived. 17 since I managed to actually start playing with him. And he hasn't really fared up that badly. I do think if they were going to nullify him at all, it should have been done by now, but to be fair, he still goes down fairly easily. His undying state is his saving point. This is not really that overpowered, because to make him overpowered you have to sacrifice either power strength, power range, power duration. I really want to ditch Transient Fortitude and just run Intensify and Overextend. This would be a really bad idea, but I still, 18 days later, I wouldn't say he's overpowered considering he doesn't have shields. The main reason he seems to survive longer and seems more powerful is because obviously if you have Ravenous, Parasitic Link and Rage, you can basically keep going for a very long time, because obviously the Rage mod, which is where not having shields comes in very useful. Even the Rage mod, also not easy to get a hold of, converts 40% of damage to health to energy, so you can keep spamming that first ability like crazy. And yes, I've basically kept him equipped since the day he came out. That has nothing to do with the fact that he's overpowered, because I don't know how many times I can say this, he's not really overpowered. You can kind of put an overpowering build on him, but it depends how you're playing and what you're playing as to how you do that. The main reason I have kept this guy equipped, the most annoying reason at all, is because I don't want this silly pink cyst on all my other frames, and that it's basically a virus that is going around, and if you play a game with somebody who has that cyst, you are more than likely going to end up with it on your frame. And because there wasn't a cure, I have left this guy equipped. Not because he's any good, but just simply because I don't want that cyst on every other one of my frames.